class is I reaffirm again the materials that you can get most of this stuff from is ekspublishing.com. And you're going to get the Sephardic closer to the original Hebrew found there. And so what we're working on is what I consider to be the better basic book to go through before we get to the primer, if people want to continue with that. And before, we were working on noun sentences. That's chapter 1. Last time we looked at the feminine noun, and we noted how that we need to be very mindful of the gender when it comes to Ivrit or Hebrew. And so what we're going to be working on today is chapter 3, or at least giving us a brief overview. So we've got masculine nouns, we've got plural nouns, now we're looking at, or masculine nouns, feminine nouns, now we're looking at plural nouns. That's what I meant to say. Okay, so I thought a good example, usually when I start this class, is I give an example of what we can learn as we progress in this. And I've always liked to use what's called the Aharonic blessing at the end of a service. And it's one thing to see it in its English form, but to see it in its Hebrew sort of brings it to another dimension here. But so we already recited this part and the transliteration of this from right to left in the end of the service here. I thought Governor did a fantastic job with that. So let's look at this here from in the actual Hebrew script. So we would start out with Yivarecha Yahuwah, Vayishmareka, Ya'er Yahuwah, Panav Alecha, Vachuneka. Okay, and then we would continue here. Elecha, let's see, Vayishem Lacha Shalom. Okay, so the tune that I'm used to using is goes a little bit like this. Yivarecha Yahuwah, Vayishmareka, Ya'er Yahuwah, Panav Alecha, V'kuneka, Yisa Yahuwah, Panav Alecha, V'yashem Leka Shalom. So usually this Leka sometimes is doubled up when you hear it canted sometimes. So we would have Yahuwah bless you and keep you, Yahuwah make his face shine upon you, and be gracious unto you, Yahuwah turn his face towards you, and give you peace. On that, which I think is a good benediction to end any service. So that's why we end that on Shabbat. So with that is just being an example. Last time I did a couple other ones, the Vino Malkino, and I think I did the Kadosh, you are Kadosh thing, the canting prayer. And now we're going to go to chapter 3 and look at plural nouns. So how do we distinguish, when we look at a noun, how do we make it more than one? So there's some things we need to be aware of. Let me get some room here.
I've got the eraser there.
Oh, okay.
In the bag.
Very good, thank you.
Let me, well, okay. I got it a while ago.
Okay, so we covered some vocabulary in chapter 1, chapter 2, the feminine part. Now we're going to look at some vocabulary. We've got a proper name, Avraham. I'm not going to put that one on there because I only want to stick to the ones that are the plural forms. So we know that in the masculine, the word this is, anybody?
Huh.
Zeh. Zeh. Zayin, Segol, He. So in masculine, we get Zayin, Segol, He. Zeh. This, masculine. But if we are saying this and there's a tense connected to, or a gender connected to it that's feminine, anybody remember? Zot. So we use, okay, Zayin, okay, Holem, and by the way, this right here, this Vav transforms into part of the vowel. So it's not Zavo, it's simply Zot. And then we put the Tav on there, make sure there's a foot. Zot. This, feminine. Okay, so that's what we covered so far as an example. Now, how do we say these? How do we say these? Now, with the Hebrew word for these, it is the same word whether it's masculine or feminine. And it's the word ele. So we would start like this. Okay, in Aleph. And we would put a saray in there. So remember that the Aleph is silent. So we get A. And how do we get the L sound? We get a lamed. Okay, we get a lamed. And then we put a segol. A, let, and then we put a dagesh in there because there's emphasis on that lamed. A, le, ends with hey. Okay, so these. Okay? Alright, so that's what we've learned so far. Masculine, feminine, plural. And so as this book goes along, it builds up on that. Now how about a word that we may be familiar with? Let me see here. We're not going to do the debar. Debar is, we want a plural. So how about the word they? Okay, in masculine. They in masculine, you would say hey. Hey with a saray. So we get hey, and it ends in mem sofit. Mem sofit. So that's masculine. This is what we need to keep in mind. The mem sofit is an indicator of masculinity when we're speaking of plural words like this. Okay? They. So we're going to make this masculine. Okay? Now, what if it's they? Let's say you've got a group of women out there and you're talking about they are near the water. Okay? Well, it's similar, but you would use the noon sofit instead. So that's an indicator. These are all signs we need to look for. There's your noon sofit. Hain. The first is haim with respect to feminine. It's hain. Okay, so what happens in Hebrew if you have 19 women and one man out in the distance, and you're asking where are they at? Well, because there's one man included in there, it seems a bit misogynistic, I suppose, but that's just the way the grammar is. It defaults. It defaults to haim. Okay. Defaults to haim. That's how it works. Now, if you've got 20 women out there and you say, where are they at? You would use this right here. Hang. Okay? Alright, so those are some examples of plural iterations. Now, remember we talked about the definite article ha last time, which means the. So if you're just saying Abraham saw a king, it would be Abraham and then the Ra'ah Melech. Well, what if, excuse me. What if you wanted to make it definite and say the king? You would use, anybody remember the device we use? Ha-melech. Very good. Okay, so in the same vein, these connecting words. When we ever see a vav connected to something, let's say we'll put a shabbat under there because that's that's a zareg. Let's put a shabbat under there. Okay, so this is a connecting word. It means and something. Sometimes there might be other nikud under there. But if we say va something, it means and. Okay, so that's a connector. All right, so that's pretty good for our plural noun vocabulary here. And so let's look at an example here. If we were to say king, what would we say? Melech, right? Melech. And okay, so Melech would be mem, segol, meh, lamed, segol. And notice in every name for the vowel is the sound of the vowel. Segol, what do you hear? F. Holem, what do you hear? O. Shurik, what do you hear?
Ooh.
Ooh. Saray, what do you hear? A sound. Okay, that is a clue. If you want to help be assisted in memorizing the vowel system, the very name, and it's helpful to know the name of your vowel because that gives you a clue as to the sound. Okay, so here's melech. Okay, we use a half sofit, one of the 5 final forms, and it closes melech. But what if we want to say melachim? We would use this device here. Okay, I'm gonna put an X here. That's not a Hebrew letter. It could be any letter there. We're gonna use hirik. You hear the E sound in there? Hirik. That's the name of that vowel. Yod, which makes it even more pronounced, so it makes it a long vowel. E and mem sofit. So something im. Okay, so if we want to write melachim, we would say like this. Just remember that im ending, okay? Meh, and then lamed. Okay. Kametz. Chaf. Remember, because it's not at the end, it goes to its regular form. Mela. We have hirikyo to get the E sound. Mela ends with mem sofit. Okay. In most cases, this is the masculine. This is the masculine tense right here. Masculine plural form. In most cases, yeah.
Now the im, was it a prefix or a suffix or at the end of suffix?
It denotes plurality.
Okay. Would it be proper to someone who blows the shofar call them shofarim?
You had more than one.
No, a person who blows the shofar.
Shofarim.
No? That wouldn't be correct?
Shofarim means more than one if
Okay.
you've got 2 people blowing at the same time.
I have to change my email address then.
Well, that still works as an email because you are denoting a group consensus of blowing.
Okay.
That's even more powerful than singular. I wouldn't.
Oh,
change
good.
that.
I like it.
All right.
Google
All right.
likes it too.
All right, so let's look at another example. What does anybody know what the word davar means?
Wood. Word.
Word.
Word or thing. Which book of the Bible do we get the word davar?
Numbers? No.
Devarim.
Yeah.
Devarim. Okay, so let's look at Dalet. Give it a little hook there so we know that to distinguish that from a resh. Okay? And we're going to put a kametz under there. To give it the da sound, we'll throw a dagesh in there. Da. Okay. Vav. Remember to give it these little part here. Otherwise, people might think that's a chaf. Da. Va. And resh. Notice the difference between this and this. See how those can get confused if you don't add that little part there to make that a dalet for sure? Okay? So we've got davar. So then let's use this right here, this device, im. I'll include that. Let's use this device here, im, and add it to that. And what do we get? We get properly. I want to bring the plural form up here, okay? Okay, so we get dalet, okay, and we have a dagesh, da, okay, da, va, resh, Yirik, Yod, Mem, Sofit. Devarim. And notice, you'll notice something here. You notice how we've got a patak on the singular form? And sometimes we might see some vowel changes when it converts to plural form. You just have to be aware that that's what can happen. So, that is masculine plurals. Now let's look at how do we, if we're talking about something that's feminine tense, in most cases, there's always an exception, just be mindful of that. We would use this ending, holem, and we would use tab, oat, O-T, or O-H-T, ending, oat, for feminine. So, what tense is eretz? I mean, what gender is eretz? I got to get that clear in my head when I teach that.
Feminine.
Huh?
Feminine.
It's feminine, isn't it? Just like Baruch is feminine. What about Shabbat? Feminine or masculine?
Feminine.
Feminine. Very good. You notice? You see a theme coming out here that affirms femininity? Okay. So let's say we're going to write Eretz. Okay, we've got Aleph. We've got Segol rather. Okay, we've got Resh, Segol, Et, Ref, and we end with what's called a Zadik Sofit. Eretz. And there's no Shabbat at the end of that. So it's Eretz. So if we want to add this O ending, okay, all we have to do is change this to what's called a Chataf Patak, which is a reduced Patak. Okay, so at first it's Eretz. Now we're talking A, and then this changes to, Kametz. Okay, and then this goes from a Sofit to a regular form Zadik. Okay, Aratz. Okay, and then we add the Holem and the Tav. give it a foot. Otherwise, people will think it's a pet.
Can you repeat what it is as a plural? How do you say it as a plural?
Aratzot. Aratzot. Okay. So we've got a left silent letter, slighter sound, then a full patach. Resh, a long vowel, kametz. Well, actually, this kametz is considered, this is the long. The other one, the shorter kametz, is kametz hatuf. And there was someone that, you were talking about that. There is a general rule for kametz hatuf. Let's say you want to use the word. Okay, so initially, if you don't know the differences, you might think that says call. No, it's kol, because this becomes kametz hatuf. So it's an OH sound. Kol. Why? Because it's a unaccented closed syllable. Now, there is another mark that you might see, and it's your little book that sort of reminded me that maybe I should bring this out. Sometimes, if you had a closed, unaccented syllable, and yet it still remains kametz, then you would see this little vertical line next to it. That's called a meteg, and that would be kol. Okay, so to let you know, even though the general rule says it's supposed to be a closed, unaccented syllable converts to kametz hatuf, which is O, they're going to put a meteg there to say, well, in this case, no, it reverts back to kametz. So you see why it's so important. These rules, to get these rules down, are the foundation by which we can read and properly pronounce Hebrew. Okay, and then also properly it moves into canting, it moves into all these other things. So that's why I study this stuff. I think it's important. Okay, so let's go back to plurals. Remember the ot ending? So let's look at another plural. So let's say the word Shabbat. Okay, so we use a sheen. Make sure this tine comes out the left-hand quadrant. Superlinear dot on the right-hand tine, giving it the sh sound. What happens if it's over here?
Stomach.
This is called a twin letter. Because they call it a twin letter because it's one of 4 sets of twin letters that simply have a change in the pointing to make the difference. Okay, sh and c. Okay, so let's look at Shabbat. Okay, so Shabbat, we have patach under there, shah, that's how we get the shah sound. We get bet, put a dagesh in there to harden it from bet to bet. Okay, so when you pronounce va, it's softer, isn't it? If we go ba, it's harder. The dagesh is the pointing that denotes that. Okay, so we have kametz under there, sha, ba, and it ends with tav, give it a foot. Okay, Shabbat. So, what do we do if we want to change it to Shabbatot? Shabbatot, that's plural, Sabbaths. Okay, well, guess what? On this one, none of the nikut changes. The only thing we do is we add the olem, which is the O sound, and we add another tav. There we go, Shabbatot. So this is an example of why it's important to know the gender of the word you're dealing with if you're going to write Hebrew. Or it also will help you reading it. Okay? Why the im and why the o ending there. So that explains that. Alright, so now there are some unusual plurals, and I definitely want to bring this up because have you ever heard the term avot? What's the gender of av?
Masculine.
It's masculine. But notice it uses the general feminine ending, the suffix. Well, that is one of our exceptions. One of our exceptions. There is, by the way, there is a sod level teaching in that, but I can't get into it right now. But it gets into the notion, actually, some of the things you were talking about. Gets into the thing of the unity of the masculine and femininity inculcated in the man, and then at the fall there was a division. And so then, there's a lot of that in there we could discuss. But, see, some people think that the grammar is just this sterile study that guys came up with a few centuries ago. There is an incredible amount of sod level teaching in grammar. And perhaps down the road, if we get people through this and we get people through the primer, we'll engage in a higher level study like that.
So wait, Greg, is it sud or so?
So, okay, because we're using samech, okay, samech, and it's holem, dalet.
So
If it's going to be sud, it's the samech, which it isn't. That would be how it would be written out. Sud with shrik. But it's written with holem. So we know for sure it's sod. So. And some people, they make the mistake of making it sad. So they try to throw that sound on it. Patach. No, that's not correct. It's sod. Okay? So, all right. So, let's look at this word ah. We're going to go back to this father word. Okay, and we have a vet. There we go. And we throw a, a comments under there. So there's Bob, Av rather, for father. Okay, so how do we make this plural? What happens is it becomes, we add the holem, and we add the tav, and there we go, avot. Okay, so that's an exception, but generally, the im ending is masculine plural, the ot ending is feminine plural. Okay, any questions so far? Comments, feedback?
I know you've taught this before, but could you review really quick again the little T underneath it? How is that bringing another vowel sound? Is that what that does?
Which one?
I know you told me before, but
That it stays in this case because it's a irregular. It stays as comments. Okay, it stays as
it is
comments.
a vowel. I do not get
So we've got in
Has
the
different
singular it's
purposes?
comments. In the plural, it stays comments. Comments
It is a
is
vowel.
ah sound.
Oh. Okay.
K-A-M-E-T-Z, A-H sound, as in the English word yacht.
Okay.
Ah sound. Okay? Alright.
Is it a general, sort of a general rule that feminine, like words of, like proper nouns that we know of, and the earth, what am I trying to think of? There's some kind of a general rule, I was told, that they will always be feminine except for these exceptions.
Right. That's what, as a generality,
Mhm.
if it's a feminine, if
If
it's
it's
a
a
feminine
city-
gender noun, it'll revert to, it'll become ot. There'll be an o ending at the end.
But what I'm thinking is, like if it's a city, the name of a city, like Yerushalayim, or a country, or a people, they're like proper nouns. What
Proper
we call
nouns.
proper nouns.
Proper
They're
nouns.
always feminine.
Yeah. There's you can never say always in
Oh, I know,
neither.
except for
Yeah.
these exceptions.
Yeah,
Right.
it's inception. Depends on what it is. Okay?
But generally,
Generally.
yeah.
Generally. All right. So if we look at this list here, here's some examples. Melech, singular. melachim, kings. Davar, singular for word. Devarim, words or Deuteronomy. Am, nation. Amim, nations. Shabbat, Sabbath. Shabbatot, Sabbaths. Eretz, land. Aratzot, lands. Baracha, blessing. Barachot, blessings. Aim, mother. Imahot, look at the change there. That does a lot of changes, but it still maintains the O ending. The Nakud changes considerably. Av, father, singular. Avot, mothers. Isn't that something? Now look at this. There is an incredible teaching here between mother and father. They both have the same O ending, the plural. That is powerful thinking there. All right. And this we could extrapolate teaching, I believe. All right, so let's say, very simply, we want to say and father. Mother and father. We would use, remember we talked about the Vav? And the Shabbat is a connector. So, okay. So, if we were to say and father, we would just simply go like this. So, yeah, comments. Oh, there we go. Va'av and father. So if we said mother and father, aim va'av, something like that. Okay. All
So
right.
what's question? What's the difference between Abba and Ima? Father and mother. I thought that was Abba and Ima was.
So these are base forms.
Oh, okay.
So
Like root.
when you hear these differences of the words, we're getting the base form that can be built upon.
Okay.
Ava or Abba, there is an a ending in a suffix form, but I've never believed that it was connected that way. I think it's more likely that it's like the differences between Shabbos and Shabbat. There's just different sects of Hebrew-speaking peoples use, and they sometimes they'll write it differently. But what this book goes into is just your base form. It's always going to have Aleph Av, no matter what. Okay.
Would Abba be feminine? Would Abba? No, it doesn't have an H in them.
No, it's Aleph.
Okay, so what if you were to say they are fathers? Let's look at this here. Remember, anybody remember our word for they, which is both masculine and feminine?
What?
It's Ela, right?
Right.
Oh, there you go. In
Okay,
Spanish.
so then we use Saray, Muhammad, okay, Ela, and then I think it's Kametz.
For day, is it
Kametz.
No, Ela.
Same as in Spanish, except the double L, which makes it a Y. Ella.
Right. We got the Dagesh in there.
Oh.
Ela. Okay. Okay.